You are up front and center. You signed a letter, sent a letter. More than 200 other mayors joined you, urging Mitch McConnell, Chuck Schumer, Congress to get back in session and pass some gun control legislation immediately. What drove you to write this letter, and do you think anything's going to come of it?
Well, specifically, we really want the Senate to come back and consider H.R. 8 and H.R. 1112. Those are really focused on background checks and giving law enforcement the ability to track guns that have been involved in crimes. We think, as mayors, certainly the United States Conference of Mayors and mayors in general have been leaders in this space for a long time, that these are really common sense solutions. We know in this topic there are folks on either end of the spectrum that aren't going to be happy about anything, doing nothing or doing too much. But we think as mayors, and I know Mayor Whaley, I was in Dayton a few days ago with her, I know Mayor Margot personally, I think mayors are tired of seeing these things happen in their cities. This was a terrible weekend for America's cities, and I think the understanding and hopefully the movement that the status quo isn't acceptable. It might offend some. Certainly this isn't, perfect can't be the enemy of good. But I think mayors are standing up, as they have for so long, saying there are some common sense things that can be done that don't infringe on the Second Amendment, but also hopefully provide some solution and some sense of security to those in our communities.
But Mayor, that's why they call it the status quo, because it is what we've gotten. Why do you think this is the case? We know that presidential candidates and others said, Mitch McConnell, please call Congress back into session. Let's take a vote on this. Why do you think things are the way they are?
Well, they're very passionate folks with very personal beliefs on this. This goes back to the founding of our country, and there are folks in just about every state, in every community that feel differently about this topic. But I think what you're seeing is the start of a tipping point, and I don't think what we're suggesting is simply the status quo. You're seeing Republicans. This letter that we signed at the Conference of Mayors and sent out is Republicans from big cities, small cities. 46 states, I think, represented, just recognizing that, there's some massive frustration of what we see in Washington of both Republicans and Democrats talking past each other, and the ramifications of doing nothing is being felt by Mayor Margot, Mayor Whaley, Mayor Dyer in Orlando, Mayor Goodman in Las Vegas. These things continue. This drumbeat of violence continues, and I think more and more folks, Republicans alike, are coming together to say something needs to be done. We might not bite the whole apple initially, but we have to have these conversations. And the first part of having a conversation is getting the Senate hopefully back to Washington.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.